Welcome back, everybody, to This Is My Bourbon Podcast. Happy New Year. I'm your host, Perry. And we are here in 2026. Somehow. We made it, man. Just want to say quickly, thank you all, as always, for your support throughout another entire year. 2025 was a banger, of course. I ended on a weird note, but that's okay. Thought we'd put out a great episode at the very end there. And put out an article for the first time. Maybe more of an essay. I don't know what you really want to call it, but it's out there for you to check out. It's over on the Substack that I started at mybourbonpod.substack.com. So once again, that's mybourbonpod.substack.com. And I'm going to be writing over there more often than not, hopefully. But I really enjoyed writing this piece. It's called Tariffs and Trade Wars Aren't the Only Thing Hurting Bourbon. U.S. consumerism is too. Name was changed a little bit due to some feedback, but that's beside the point. Go and check it out. I've had some good feedback as well that I'm very excited about, and I'm looking forward to taking into my next pieces in the future. But as always, of course, you can support the show as you always do through the Patreon and all that other stuff. Links are below in the description. The link for the Substack is also in the description below. Whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on your podcast app, all that stuff is there. We're going to get into the top 10 list for this year a little bit later on in the episode. And Patreon is actually going to be getting something that would normally be on the main episode for these best of episodes that I decided to shift over for them because I've been splitting up some Patreon only content on the main episodes to the Patreon subscribers, of course, from the $5 and up tier, because wanted to give them some extra stuff. Of course, but we'll get into that a little bit later. You're still going to get the main top 10 list, of course, but there's parts of the rest of what I do for these best of episodes that will otherwise be available for Patreon only. That being said, though, we start off every episode with a segment known as Flying Blind. And this week we are doing not really a true Flying Blind, because I know what this sample is. And it does come from listener and friend of the show, W. Leb. The funny thing is, if you're a somewhat new listener of the show, daggum, these are actually kind of hefty pours. If you're a somewhat new listener of the show, you do not know that W. Leb is actually a nickname for this gentleman. I know his real name, but I decided when he first wrote into the show, and somehow we, Eric and I, my previous co-host, misunderstood his actual name was not included in whatever original correspondence was provided to us, that was not his name. And so that just kind of became his nickname. And so he has remained virtually anonymous since he first communicated with us here on the podcast. However, he has sent in a sample. 2 samples, actually. So I've got some for another time of, and it might not show up great on the camera initially, but it's Hogsworth, and it's 46.9 ABV, and that comes out to, 93.8? And he had sent in a barrel ring a couple weeks ago, in which he talked about this product, which was started by the founder of Whistle Pig after he left, and is a blend of bourbon and Armagnac. The oldest product in here is a 42-year-old Armagnac, of course, from France, and the youngest in here is a 4-year, 9-month Tennessee bourbon. It's also got a 5-year, 4-month Minnesota bourbon too. But I'm very excited to try this. I'm not gonna lie. I'm very, very much looking forward to trying this. I just want to say, WLeb, thank you so much for sending this. He said he sent a little note too, covering up his name. This is the Hogsworth 96.9 Armagnac. Wait, 96.9 or 46.9? 46.9. There we go, the ABV. Armagnac / bourbon blend. I know you appreciate a healthy pour, so I sent 2 nips. Enjoy, and please let me know what you think it may be similar to. Okay. So, of course, because this is the best of episode, I don't really have anything that I'm going to be reviewing. So this might be a pour that lasts me for a little while. This is a solid, I want to say at least 1.5 ounces to maybe 2 ounces. We'll start with the first half of this bottle, I suppose. I don't want to, imply too much here for those who are critical of what I do on the podcast. I'm joking, but I want to get at least a good pour in here so I can figure out what's going on with this blend. An Armagnac and bourbon blend is very interesting because, first and foremost, I mean, you're taking 2 different, completely different distilled spirits. Of course, one is primarily corn-based, and the other is just a grape distillate from the Armagnac region of France. So, the more you know, I guess. Let's dive in for a nose. Truth be told, right off the bat, it smells like it is. And by the way, I don't think I've ever had a 42-year-old Armagnac before, even if it is blended into another drink. That's kind of incredible in and of itself. So, WLib, thank you for that. But it does give off kind of an immediate feeling of just a finished bourbon or finished rye. I think that where this is blended with younger bourbons, it's going to be less dominant on the corn whiskey front and is going to be more, probably going to be a little bit more heavy on the Armagnac just in general. That being said, though, as we see here on the back of the label, there is primarily, and we're talking about 60% of the blend, this 4-year, 9-month Tennessee bourbon and the 5-year, 4-month Minnesota bourbon. So, and the reason that I know this too is because WLab sent pictures in of the bottle to the barrel rings number, which if you don't know what that number is, it's 859-428-8253. You can call or text, leave us a message, and we'll check it out here on the show. So, again, the more you know, I suppose. Am I crazy for feeling like it's just a slightly kind of circus peanutty, which is leading me to feel a little bit like it's kind of Angel's NVE? I mean, just ever so slightly. Like, but at the same time, it is predominantly feeling like it's more of a finished product than it is blended with 2 different spirit types, which might be to its benefit. I don't know, but also I'm saying that before I've actually tried it. So, I don't know. Let's dive into it. Also, cheers again. Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you so much for being here for another round of 10 BIP moving into 2026. Yep. It is definitely in that realm of like a port finished bourbon. Oddly enough. Which is so strange. I mean, I never have Armagnac and feel like it gives off port flavors in general. I mean, it always feels a little bit lighter, a little bit bouncier, a little bit more like wine if it were a spirit. It's very interesting. And it really does lean towards that like finishing aspect as opposed to it being blended. I'm pretty surprised by that outcome. Even still, I'm not really feeling like this has a whole lot of bourbon influence in general. There's not really like a whole lot of caramel vanilla notes. There's not a whole lot of like predominant oak. I mean, there is some dryness on the finish, but it is definitely in an entire category of its own. It drinks higher proof than it actually is, I think. There's more of a bite to it than I would anticipate for, again, what is it, 43.8 or 93.8 proof? There's quite a bit of ethanol on that palate. It is complex, man. It is something else. Very, very impressed with this. I'm deeply surprised. I'm deeply impressed. I can't remember. $46 for this. $46 for a spirit that includes a 42-year-old Armagnac in here. Now, also, I want to remind you as well, or maybe educate you regardless, that Armagnacs are vintage stated. So this being at, what is it, a 1982 Armagnac? Let's see what the actual price would be here. And we'll look at Total Wine, because I think that's probably one of the more no, I don't want that. Probably one of the more appropriate pricings, I would guess. But at the very least, a 1982 Bas Armagnac. Am I saying that correctly? Probably not. Again, vintage stated, so that means that it was barreled in 1982, not that it was bottled in 1982. Runs you about $220, at least according to Total Wine. I saw a couple other prices that were, varying, maybe closer to 150 in some places. Regardless, though, the price for what this bourbon is going to, vary wildly because of the fact that it is blended in with other products, especially all the way down to 4 years, 9 months, basically a 5-year-old bourbon. So with all that in mind, what a crazy experience. I mean, I'm very impressed with this. WLeb, thank you so much for sending it to me. What a way to start off 2026. I'd love to see what other weird pours we can get. And if you want to also send stuff for me to try, the P.O. Box is open, of course. P.O. Box 22609, Lexington, Kentucky 40522. And I'd love to see what you got for me. So I know I said I was going to save that for most of the episode, but it was really easy to drink. So what are you going to do? Anyway, let's talk real quick about what I have been drinking recently. And when did I record an episode last? 26th. I recorded the day after Christmas. That's right. So I have had a little bit of stuff going on since then. Luckily, the calendar's helping me out here. I'll be very honest with you. First of all, the day after I recorded last, I went to Maker's Mark, all the way in Laredo, Kentucky. And not that anything was particularly off the wall different, but it was nice to try Maker's 46 cast strength again. And I know that it varies from batch to batch, but there was something at least about the batch that we had that day that I felt very, very strong about. It was a really good. I should have asked which one it was, but it was very solid. It was a really good batch of Maker's 46 cast strength. Also tried one of the Star Hill Farms private selects at the bar before our tour, and really enjoyed that. Lucy got an old fashioned that she said was the best old fashioned she had ever had, and it was quite fantastic. I'd have to say myself. Moving on from there, we had our last Christmas of the year. The day after that. With her mom's side of the family, brought what did I bring? Oh, I brought a JIT rare character single barrel, and I also brought a Jim Beam single barrel. Not anything like crazy or as far as the Jim Beam, just a like off the shelf beam, like the 108 proofers, which I had brought to a couple of different Christmases prior and still was delicious. Absolutely loved it. Moving on from there, what else do we have? Oh, man. The day before New Year's Eve. I don't think I can talk about some of that stuff. I don't think I can. I went over to my father-in-law's house for an evening and had some pours that were delivered to him from a friend who does some contract work, not as a distiller, but I don't even want to say anything more because I don't want to get this guy in trouble. But it was stuff that was really, really good. And has already been like released and or allocated to other groups or outfits, and it was phenomenal. One of them actually was released to the public at a lower proof, and we got to try it at cast strength. And I was pretty blown away by it. I'm going to be honest with you. New Year's Eve, we went over to our friends Brandy and Micah's house, whom we normally spend New Year's Eve with anymore. Brought over a slew of pours for Micah to try. One of the first bottles that I pulled out was Stag. And he was like, I was just recommended Stag by somebody. And I was like, well, lucky for you, you get to try some tonight. And so that was a fun, fun kind of wish fulfillment that I got to bring over to him. And then had a Brook Hill that was gifted to me that I then gifted to him because he loved it so much. And I was like, this is yours now. It was his favorite pour of the night, and I had to give it to him. And then New Year's Day, and this kind of brings us up to speed at this point, but we always go over to Mama and Papa Ritter's house for a traditional lamb dinner to ring in the new year. As is, I think it's supposed to be good luck, I think is the way that works. But we always go over there and always have a couple of somewhat special pours with Dad. And ran downstairs to grab a Blanton's Gold pick that he has. And as I was like going around the corner in the basement to grab it, I saw that he had a bottle of Little Book. I was like, I don't remember you having Little Book. He was like, well, bring it upstairs. And I looked at it, and it was batch 1 from 2017, the Easy, which I had not had in a very, very long time. And I did not remember it being as good as it was. Just kind of a nice, well, easy way, I guess, to start off 2026. And then we also, Dad and I shared a 2019 Bourbon County Stout. So it's fun when I can actually have a full lineup of what you've been drinking recently, to share with you guys, because sometimes it's like, well, I've got, this and that, and sometimes there's just kind of a shot in the dark. But this has actually been a fun week of pours and sharings and whatnot and festivities. So I have enjoyed myself over the past week. So, folks, I intentionally saved this episode for the beginning of I was going through my my notes app on my computer, and I found a very funny one that made me laugh a lot from 6 years ago. It'll be 7 years this coming December. But I intentionally saved the best of episode for this year, for the first episode of 2026, because it was a weird release schedule, with episodes coming out on Wednesdays as they normally do, of course, but also there were also holidays falling on Wednesdays in 25, and I figured that this would be a great way to start out 2026 is let's reflect a little bit. Let's talk about the year that was in 2025. And, I've kind of reflected enough on it. I don't want to spend too much time on that. Chad Perkins and I kind of discussed whether or not 2025 was a good or bad year for bourbon. So if you want to go back and listen to that episode, that was a couple weeks ago. I've written about it too. So if you want my written perspective on that over on the Substack, you can find that link below. But overall, I just as a like behind the scenes thing, I guess, I waited until later in the year than normal to get my best of list together. And the way that I do my best of list is I have 3 categories. I have best top 10, I have honorable mentions, and I have most disappointing. And this year, the main episode is going to get my best of and my honorable mentions, and Patreon is also going to get the most disappointing. So if you want to hear my most disappointing pours from this year, stuff that wasn't necessarily for me or stuff that I had issues with that came out in 2025, you can head over to patreon.com/my bourbon podcast from the $5 and up tiers, of course. But it was such a wide pool that when I really started to put everything together, and once I started like going back and forth with some pours, it finally like formed itself. And there are times when in the past this has been how it's worked for me as well. Like I kind of have an idea of what is going to go into my top 10, but I don't always know exactly where some of that stuff is going to land. I talked about this on the pregame chats for Patreon as well, that there were a few things that I kind of wanted to find a place for in my top 10, but didn't quite fit because I either had like limited experience with them or I didn't quite have the impact that I wanted to maybe have with it. But I also, tried to get around to right before recording, and it just didn't work out. So, and the other side of this too, for anybody who has never listened to a best of, a year episode, or top 10 episode for 10 BIP, it is, of course, as I think is probably evident for just about anybody who puts one of these lists together, only ever things that I have tried and or reviewed. It's not always going to be something that I have made content with. Sometimes it's stuff that I have tried off of the podcast or off of a live stream. But luckily, I'm pretty sure, and I'm checking it again, that I think there's only one product on here that I haven't made content with. And I'll explain why when I get to it. But otherwise, everything else I've at least, I have dedicated an episode to or a live stream to, in one capacity or another. But, the biggest struggle was kind of finding places for some of the things that I know were going to go into my top 10, but just like where were they going to slot into? And also just like I spent so much of like the back end of 2025 going, the beginning of the year was really good, and I just didn't feel like the end of the year had anything to offer. And that's just not true. The end of the year had great products as well. You just had to kind of like parse through it a little bit, and be a little bit more mindful of what you were actually looking at. But that being said, again, this is everything. That and I'm probably not gonna name every honorable mention that I have, because there's too many. I'm gonna point out a few that I feel like are worth mentioning, that you might be like, I can't believe it didn't make it into his top 10, especially considering how like positively he talked about it. Or maybe my attitude changed in some capacity as well, over the past 12 months. But anyway, I will, I think for Patreon as well, I will still tack on at the end of the episode my most disappointing. And I hate to end an episode on such a negative note, but I I don't know a better way to do that, just because I think it makes it a little bit too choppy here for the general flow of an episode. So let's go ahead and talk about some honorable mentions. I think the first one, or first two that I want to touch on, this might be slightly controversial, especially because of at least how highly I spoke of it from time to time, and then my attitude towards the other one definitely shifted towards the positive side of things. The more I tried it, but Maker's Star Hill Farms, the wheat whiskey, and the cast strength 2501, the age stated at 7 years 2 months, and those two products to me seem to be indicative of how Makers is continuing to shift into the next generation of their products, while still providing like higher quality for what it is that they are doing every step of the way. And I just kept going, I love Star Hill Farms so much. I love the cast strength with the age statement on it so much. So much so that where are you? When I was at the distillery, I actually bought another bottle of it that was even signed by Rob Samuels. It was $50. What am I supposed to do? I guess it is for me. My daily bourbon. What am I supposed to do? I want to touch on this one as well, because I think that it deserves at least some kind of mention, but it's hard to lump a group of releases into a top 10. And I also had my issues with some of the single barrels that were in here, of course, but it was probably just the single barrels that I had. And also, I have preferences over some of the other ones that are in their lineup, but it's the Four Roses single barrel collection that came out in 2025. They are seemingly expanding on this as well beyond the... God, I'm not even going to try to remember all of the ones that came out this year. They expanded beyond the OBSV, went into 3 more recipes, and it seems like they're going beyond that as well. My hope is that eventually they will go into an OBSO, because that's my favorite recipe, even at 100 proof, which is what the single barrel collection is. I would love to see that get introduced into that lineup. I know those are roughly 6 or 7 years old, and again at 100 proof, but for $40, $50, whatever it is, I think you can find it for at MSRP. I think it's a steal. Those bottles are fantastic. They can use them for a wide array of opportunities, sipping, cocktails, on the rocks, whatever. Yeah. This is an interesting one to throw in here, and this was like, this is so close to like a number 11 or 12, and I feel so bad that I couldn't have pushed it into my top 10. And I'm so sorry, Brian, but Bikey's Blue was so close to making it into my top 10. But what an awesome introduction into this brand, and a fantastic story, an affordable pour, affordable bottle through Sealbox. Just I hate to like be such a sucker for a great story, but it is what it is. I don't know what else to say. And it's great that the bourbon itself holds up. I'm excited for the follow-up release too, and I'm gonna leave it at that, because if I say too much more, I'm gonna get any kind of wave of criticism, I think. Let's see, what else do I want to touch on? 2XO vinyl blend, 2XO white oak rye, excuse me. I love the white oak rye so much. The vinyl blend, I remember liking a whole lot. I don't even know if I have anything to say beyond that. I might just not even include that in the honorable mentions, just because I don't have anything else to say. But the white oak rye was such a solid, like, shelf stay. I always say shelf stable, in terms of like a product that you can always get. But it's a $50 rye whiskey that is supposed to be extremely flexible for your everyday sipper, but also find its way into cocktails, and I think is extremely elevated for the product that it is, and is going to give you the opportunity to surprise people for the rye that the rye that's in there, you know. Speaking of ryes, who is this for kind of bottle? Sazerac 100. My initial feeling on that, and apparently it was somewhat for me, because I did wind up falling in love with that rye whiskey quite a bit. Not a not a problem with the Sazerac rye 100 proof. Extremely affordable. If I'm not mistaken, $30 for a liter bottle of, 4 or 5 year old rye whiskey at 100 proof. That again is supposed to be one of your flexible pourers. You know, enjoy it however you want to, I suppose. One more rye, and then I'll talk about a trio of releases. Sealbox Christmas Rye. This was a rye whiskey that I thought was going to be a one and doneer for me, just in terms of like I was going to continuously bring it out at Christmas events, Christmas functions, and it wouldn't make it through the season. And I just loved it so much that I had to hold on to some of it. Like there's a hoarder aspect in me, I guess, where it just it needed to stick around for a little bit. I've got friends who didn't get to make it back into town for the holiday season this year, that when I sent them a picture of it or talked about it to them, they were like, I would like to try that. And I was like, well, okay, I think I can I think I can do that for you. And so there's still some of that is sitting around for them now. So $50 rye finished in Amberana and maple barrels, and yeah, fantastic stuff. And then finally, in my honorable mentions, the father-son duo release from Dave Jennings and Jennings Sr., Caleb's Crossing, bourbon, rye, and their bourbon and rye blend, which I thought all three of them absolutely banged. Incredible bourbons that were slow proofed in the barrel, or excuse me, whiskeys that were slow proofed in the barrel, and released at a slightly premium price point. But I think still, show that Dave Jennings has such a rare bird 101 too. If you're not familiar with who he is, you probably are. If you're listening to this, I think you more than likely are. But has such an affinity, not just for spirits in and of themselves, in the bourbon and rye sphere, but is so committed to delivering the best possible product that he can, and bringing his dad along as well for a family brand. A family product is so cool. If you haven't tried them yet, I think you should. I've still got some samples sitting over here on my desk as well, and I'm trying to save them because I enjoy them that much. That's where I stand at the moment. So that leaves us, though, with the beginning of the top 10 list for This Is My Bourbon Podcast 2025. And I want to, at least, because I think I have I have visual representations for everything except 2 pours on here. So I'm going to grab them while I'm thinking about it, and I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that. We're back. Top 10. This Is My Bourbon Podcast 2025. Let's start out, of course, with the number 10 slot, coming from 2 Indiana entrepreneurs, father-son duo as well. This is my only rye whiskey on the entire list, but this is a rye that I came back to time and time again, and I kept sharing with folks. And I could not stop myself from having pours of when I was a little weak at the knees, but eventually had to just set back and go, you need to control yourself a little bit more. This is the 15 Stars Fine Aged Rye Founders Reserve, 14, 13, 9, and 8-year-old straight rye whiskeys, 95 proof from Rick and Ricky Johnson. We're going to have a little bit because here we are. I know that I've made content with this rye in some capacity or another. It might be a little bit hard to find it wherever it is. But it is out there. I have definitely done it. Am I losing my voice? I think I might be losing my voice. I hope I'm not losing my voice. Brown sugar brown butter. Surprisingly kind of heavy on the oak. I imagine that there's not a whole lot of that 14-year in there, but definitely is an absolute hitter. So that is my number 10, the 15 Stars Founders Reserve Fine Aged Rye. Coming in at number 9. Now, I don't have a visual representation for this one. I apologize. But every time I considered this one, and every time I went back, said to myself, don't you think? And I went, yes, you're right. It had to be somewhere on this list. One of the standouts for me of this year was the Maker's Cellar Aged from 2025, the 11, 13, and 14-year-old blend. Let me look real quick because I don't remember exactly what the proof was. Oh man, my keyboard's asleep. $112.9 proof. And $175 at the distillery. So kind of wish I had gotten the bottle. But absolutely decadent. I think that cellar aged continues to just improve and improve and improve with makers. They're doing something right with that release, and I'm very, very impressed with this year's. Who knows? Next year might be even better. We'll find out. But it might seem counterintuitive for me to put this next release above it. But as far as like experience that I've had with it and enjoyment that I've had with it, and a pour that has continued to bring me joy, the Old Fitz 7-year Spring, the Bottled and Bond, this shelf stable release, right? The one that was all the marketing over. It came in the slender bottle with the wood cork. There was something about it that just felt like it was special. And I was talking with Chad Perkins from It's Bourbon Night about the fact that there's a fall release. Haven't had the fall release. I'm trying to be a little bit more specific, and talk about, of course, the one that I have had, which is the spring release. Because how the heck would I know what the fall release is like if I haven't had it? What else am I supposed to say? This has been fun to share with people. And even feel like, in some capacity, this pour that was in some ways was taken from us in favor of a premium product, is now back. Even still, I mean, at $50 or $60, roughly what you're going to see it for, depending on your market, maybe even a slightly higher price. I think that it's going to be a lot of people's go-to for, hey, look what I have on my bar. It's a prettier bottle. It's already kind of like, presenting itself as somewhat of a decanter, even though it does have labels on it. There's a reusability factor for the bottle itself too. And the whiskey itself is good inside as well. I think it's only gotten better since I first tried it. It started out so harsh, and I don't know why. But it has gotten so buttery. It's gotten pretty mellow, but in a good way, to where the flavors are well acclimated to each other. And I just think that they're I just think it makes for a really beautiful whiskey. I really do. What can I say? Coming in now at number 7, which may have been more appropriate at number 8 because it has a number 8 in its name. But it's higher in my ranking because it's higher in my heart. Nope, that's not right. I feel like I was doing a Matt Porter bit for some reason. This was one of my more sought after bottles this year too. And it's hard to say where this is going to go for 2026 and beyond. Bruce Russell says that you should stop hunting it and overpaying for it because it's going to be widely available. But Turkey 101 8-year is an absolute steal at $40 and 8 years 101 proof. I think that it should be about $10 less, but this in and of itself is still a masterpiece of a bourbon. I think that it this is, commentary outside of the outside of the bourbon itself. But I think I don't know how much I trust the marketing of, well, Bruce went to Campari and said that we need to give the American consumers the product that we're giving them abroad. I don't know. Maybe it is true. It does feel like something that would be actually somewhat true, but who's to say? Can't believe I'm about to say blood orange and like spiced tea on this nose. But it's such a beautiful bourbon. And really I do feel like is elevated enough above Turkey 101 at its base product. I would have to do it again in a blind to feel it out one way or another. But that being said, I'm very happy with this release, and it's brought me a lot of joy. All right, let's move on to number 6. This is one where I thought I remembered it enough, but I had to come back to it and remind myself just how much I actually loved this bottling. It's a little limited. It's a little inside, but it's enough that if you were able to get it, it was worth your time. And that is the Pursuit Spirits Derbytown 7-year-old barrel proof at 122.8 proof. This was such a beautiful bourbon that it is, as soon as I tried it within the context of like other bourbons that were in my running for my top 10, it found a place in here. And I think I always kind of knew in the back of my head at the beginning of the year that it was going to have a place, but I didn't quite know where it was going to fit. And it was nice to be reminded when I went back to it that this has held up. And I appreciate that Kenny and Ryan really delivered with this one. Oh, I got a big clove note on the nose there. Orange zest, brown sugar, cinnamon toast. Vanilla cream. I mean, just an incredible palate. The finish is so long and just makes me want to keep drinking this bourbon. It's fantastic. And to have, the official podcast of bourbon put out something as good as this, it means something, of course, and they're doing great work. I also put in my my honorable mentions. The Pursuit. Where is this? The Pursuit triple mash barrel proof bourbon and rye too. So great year for Pursuit Spirits, and appreciate you guys helping us out and being able to try these guys. We are swiftly moving into the top. I say swiftly, and I just looked down at my monitor and saw that I've been recording for over an hour, but the editing will cut things down a little bit. But we're moving into the top 5. Now, I told the gentleman who put together this product initially that I could not include any of his products in my best of list. Now, something that I should have said earlier too is that I do not include single barrels in any top 10 or best of lists that I do. And the reason is because they are not widely available. You cannot get on, a list that is even, somewhat exclusive to be a part of, to get. And it just is not, it's so much, it's so much more finely tuned of subjectivity that even if I were to do single barrels, I could do 13 podcasts just talking about like my top 10 Russell's single barrels of 2025, my top 10 Knob Creek single barrels of 2025, top 10, blah, 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 blah. And to me, I'd much rather talk about the releases that came out from the year. because that seemed, even if they are allocated, it still is in some capacity more fair, I guess. I don't know. It's not a perfect system. Nothing about this podcast is perfect. What are you going to do? Somebody's going to yell at me one way or another. So, this was another late stage entry to the consideration, but it did definitely remind me that other people share my tastes, at least. And this kind of felt like it was made for me. And that is Rare Character Limited Release Batch 14 Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. It's 126 proof. All Kentucky bourbon. 6 to 15-year-old bourbon in here. I don't remember the actual breakdown of the barrels. I probably couldn't tell you anyway what was in here if I did know, because probably get me in trouble. But regardless of whether or not Chad is a friend who did blend this, I feel like this is the best blended product that came out of Rare Character this year. And it's my number 5 favorite bourbon that I've had in 2025. So much so that I ain't got much left on my bottle. For listeners, and again, audio listeners, love you to death. I don't know. There's what? Maybe an eighth of this bottle? 1/7? I don't know. Not much. Not much. But for it to be a late edition, I knew pretty immediately that it was going to be in there. So that's number 5. Number 4. I don't have a visual representation of, because my sample bottle is not with me any longer. I brought it over to the Whiskey Mutants house for our Friendsgiving back in November. And I knew when I reviewed it, and I knew when I just tried it in general, that it was special. And I had to share it with him at the very least. But I couldn't stop thinking about it, and it fit so perfectly in here. But it's the Four Roses Small Batch Limited Edition 2025, of course. It's one of the best versions of the Small Batch LE that has come out in the past few years. I think it's the maybe the strongest, despite the fact that it's not the oldest, or one of the batches that doesn't have the oldest bourbon in it over the past few years. But I do sincerely believe that this year's showing elevates itself to an unbelievable degree. Something you might be thinking at this point is, where Perry are the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection releases? Well, I didn't get to try any this year, so even if I did, I mean, who's to say where they would have placed? But I didn't try a single one. I didn't try a single one leading up to this this recording. So I have no point of reference for any of those limited releases for this top 10. That being said, though, I did get a bottle of Stag 25B. And that slots itself in nicely at the number 3 slot for my top 10 of 2025. Yes, my last review of 2025 made its way all the way to number 3. This bourbon fought its way, and I do mean fought. Pour after pour into this spot after mindful consideration, I suppose, is the correct way to say it. And I went back and forth through everything that I was considering here in the top 3 to place it where it was. And it is, aside from another Buffalo Trace product that I tried prior to this, that I unfortunately didn't get to try again, that might have made it into my top 10, but I can't definitively say one way or another, because I needed to try it one more time to say, and that's the situation I'm in, that's the way it goes. It's all very relative to my own situation. So that being said, though, the Stag 25B, I still stand by my 17 out of 20. That finish is getting better every time I go back to it, and I got to be honest with you. Might even be one of the better parts of what this bourbon is. My number 2. I kept coming back to on multiple occasions. And I also again tried side by side with everything that was in my top 3. And I definitively said repeatedly that this was my top 3. I know it's subjective. Whatever. Do what you will with it. There is a beauty to the blending that went into this bourbon. The craft that elevated this product. I know that everything in here is sourced. I get it. But it shows that there is a way forward for, and even having, rare character LR14 at number 5 is still probably showing that things are not exactly what they look like 5, 6, 8, 10 years ago at this point. But at least in this case, this is my favorite accessible bottle of the year, and the one that I have bought multiples of that I will continue to buy more of into 2026. That is Jefferson's Cask Strength 130 proof. Heaven Hill Barton Turkey Blend, 8 years old minimum, reportedly, as far as we know. It is a fuller experience for me than the Stag is, and I know that I initially had my issues with this, but it has elevated itself. The more and more that I have gone back to it, and I think it's remarkable. If you haven't gotten a bottle yet, I recommend that you do so. I really, really do. It's if it says it's a limited release, I don't know if that's true or not, but it's phenomenal. So it's my number 2. I don't even know if you might, but you might not, but you could, but you might not be it's hard. It's potentially, somewhere. Who's this? It's a little kind of maybe. Where's the bit? My number 1 is Jack Daniel's 14. My number 1 is Jack Daniel's 14. This was the best whiskey I had this entire year. I love an oaky, leathery, high proof, in your face whiskey, bourbon, and this was it for me. This was the bottle that I had said all year long, if you saw it, I want one. I don't know where these bottles are. I finished my sample from the distillery in preparation for this episode. Every time I went back to it, it screamed, "This is it." And every time that I tried it, it said, "You're an idiot for not putting it at number 1." Now, I don't know if it is going to maintain the barrel-proof nature or the level of quality when it moves into the 2026 release of of this batch or this line. But at least in this capacity, this was the best whiskey that I had this year. Hands down, across the board. I was so fortunate to try this. I was so fortunate to have gotten this sample from Jack Daniel's. It's crazy to say that at all. I am, of course, still looking for a bottle. I hope I don't have to pay secondary, but we'll see. At this point, it's far too late past the initial release for me to expect much less than that. But all that being said, this for me is probably an outlier. As far as like what a lot of people would prefer. And it's also real weird to have a Lexington, Kentucky-based bourbon podcast and naming a Jack Daniel's whiskey as their number one whiskey of 2025. But here it is. And I got to be honest with you. With all of the market factors, with all of the considerations of how many barrels we have aging in Kentucky, with these step backs that some distilleries are taking, I think that there is the potential for Kentucky brands to put out product at this level. I'm not saying that this is like a call out or anything. It's not that. It's just this was the best thing that I had this year. Would have been cool if it was Kentucky. I don't care. But it was pretty great. You know. I'm real happy with this. I'd like some more, please. Please. Pretty please. But that's my top 10. Let me know what yours is. Or at least your top 1, your top 5, whether you're watching on YouTube or you want to hit me up on social media, email, all those links are below. I'd love to hear from you. Not done yet, of course. There's still more to the show here in just a second. I'm going to get comfortable here. If you're watching the YouTube video and you're like, why is he leaning back? It's the first episode of the year. I'm trying to allow myself the space to enjoy the podcast in whatever space I can. And in this capacity, it's comfortability. Comfortability, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, we don't have any barrel rings this week, but if you want to send in your top 10s or your top 5s or whatever, you can do it that way. The barrel ring segment of the show is completely driven by you, the listener or the viewer. There is a hotline number for it. It's 859-428-8253. Send a text message or leave a voicemail. We'll check it out either way here on the podcast. And it doesn't have to be, immediate. If you are listening to this, a couple weeks down the line, I'd be happy to check it out as well. So keep us up to date. And if you have feedback on the article as well from the Substack, boy, howdy, I'd love to hear it. Curious what you think. I don't have any high proof hot takes this week. that's the part of the show where I talk about things that have been grinding my gears, but I'm worn out, man. I am worn out. Especially here at 1:00 in the morning, on Sunday, January 4th. But last segment of the show, Tips and Bits, where I recommend things that I've been watching, reading, listening to, enjoying that I also think you would enjoy, because I've been doing that as well. You know what? I finished Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, and you know what? It's a bad game. It's just not a very good game. It's really not. It's too hard in places. It's really boring in others. It's got side characters that are super annoying. The combat is way too linear and repetitive. The upgrades don't make any sense. It looks good, at least. It looks really pretty. But it don't feel like Metroid. Definitely barely feels like a Metroid Prime game. So, that's Tips and Bits and High Proof Hot Takes all rolled into one, I guess. Anyway, Patreon's got to stick around because I got more things that I'm going to complain about in some capacity for my most disappointing list. Anyway, first episode of the year, huh? Been a good one. I appreciate you all. Let me say first and foremost that I cannot wait for what we have ahead of us in 2026. I know I've said this a couple times, but that's where I'm going to leave it. And I just appreciate you all, as always, for supporting the show. If you want to continue to do that with a little bit of monetary value, you can head to patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast for as little as $1 a month, $5 and up. So there's stuff that you can get over there. If you want to follow the show on social media, at MyBourbonPod on all social media channels. If you want to send questions or comments, you can do so by sending that to thisismybourbonshop@gmail.com. You might be asking yourself, why is it thisismybourbonshop@gmail.com and not something like My Bourbon Pod or This Is My Bourbon Podcast or whatever? Well, that's because way the heck back in 2017, I started getting into this space by opening an apparel and merchandise store at bourbonshop.threadless.com, which is still open for you to check out. There's things like This Is My Bourbon Drinking shirt. Lots of This Is My Bourbon Drinking shirt, apparently. The old My Bourbon Weekend shirt. I'd rather be drinking bourbon. And the old Swiss bourbon shirt. There's stuff. There's prints, there's tapestries, there's bath mats. There are phone cases, hats, buttons, bags, zip pouches, scarves, mouse pads, skateboards, so many things you can find over there. If you would like to, bourbonshop.threadless.com once again. You, again, can send a barrel ring to 859-428-8253. And just like W. Leb did with his samples at the beginning of the show, you can send them to P.O. Box 22609, Lexington, Kentucky, 40522. And then last but not least, leave a 5-star rating and review at your podcast app of choice, and we will check it out here on the podcast, read it out loud, give you a little shout out, and it sends us up in the podcast algorithm. Helps us out, always. And that does it for the Best of 2025 episode. Thank you all so much for your continued support. Next week, I've got no idea what's going to happen. I very rarely know what's going to go on week to week, but next week especially, I've got no clue at the moment. That being said, though, thank you very much for continuing to support the show. I'll see you real soon. Until then, though, I am Perry, and this is my Bourbon Podcast.